to do shit just to get, oh, she's a nice person. Tiffany's so nice and so sweet. That nice.
Change.
Like,
All my gigs gone.
Really?
Everything gone.
but now that they changed face,
I
do you
don't
feel
know,
like
bro.
you regain your,
I don't have no job.
It was supposed to be a promo interview. 10 minutes of press for an upcoming comedy special. Light questions, a laugh track. Something to feed the algorithm. But Tiffany Haddish had other plans. The moment the host asked, "Is there anyone in the industry you'd never work with again?" she paused. Not dramatically, not theatrically, she just stopped. 12 seconds of silence, and then she said it. Tyler, the host, blinked. Tyler Perry. Tiffany nodded slowly. Like someone walking back into a room she swore she'd never enter again. You waited 12 years to say that, the host said, trying to smile, trying to make it a bit. But Tiffany wasn't laughing. I waited because no one would have believed me back then. Her voice didn't tremble, but it bent, like something heavy was behind every word. She adjusted her mic, sat forward. I was fresh, hungry, coming up, and everyone told me, play it smart. Don't say nothing bad about Tyler. He'll open doors for you. He'll make you a star. A beat. Only thing he opened was a deal I didn't ask for. The host's face changed. Tiffany went on. I was offered a project. I won't name it because the people still on ITI love them. But I was given two options. Sign on the dotted line or disappear. What was on the line? The host asked. Tiffany glanced off camera. My silence. The audience was quiet. The crew behind the lens, frozen. I was asked to sign something that had nothing to do with acting. It was personal. Control over likeness, over scheduling, over the way I spoke in interviews. And when I pushed back, I got the call. What call? She looked at the host, dead in the eyes. The one that said, if you won't play along, don't expect anyone to pick up your calls again. The studio chilled. The host whispered, was it him? I'll say this, Tiffany replied. The caller didn't have to say his name. The threat did that on its own. A pause. Then she smiled, sad, knowing I wasn't blacklisted. I was benched. Quietly, like a bad memory you don't delete, just mute. Then she leaned in close to the mic, and her voice dropped to a whisper. But memories come back, especially when they start speaking. The video hit 1 million views in 4 hours, and somewhere in Atlanta. A phone buzzed on a nightstand. The screen lit up with 3 words. She named him. The response wasn't immediate. Not from Tyler, not from his camp, not from the industry that had wrapped his image in angel wings and billion-dollar backlot deals. They needed time to assess. To measure the size of the blast Tiffany had just set off. But time wasn't theirs anymore. By midnight, the clip had fractured across the internet. Twitter threads dissected her pauses. TikToks reenacted her stare. Reddit dug into old interviews where she dodged his name. Journalists pulled archives, pieced together career gaps, and connected dots the public had been trained not to see. She hadn't made an accusation. She hadn't needed to. She told the truth in the language only. Hollywood insiders understood quiet defiance, cold facts, and a single unsaid name spoken loud by the weight of the room. The next morning, Tiffany posted a photo. Just her sitting in a white chair, no caption, no filter, just a scar above her collarbone that hadn't been seen before. A reminder, she'd survived something. The industry scrambled. People started unfollowing her publicly, then messaging her privately. Some said, be careful. Others said, thank you. An assistant director who hadn't worked in 5 years quote tweeted the interview and added, she's telling the exact truth. I watched it happen. Then he deactivated his account. In Los Angeles, studio execs were emailing back and forth in chains marked confidential node forwarding. The phrases used were corporate but trembling. What if she kept the original NDA? Do we have a copy of the call log? She wasn't supposed to talk, but she had, and in the hallway of a talent agency in Beverly Hills. 2 women crossed paths in silence, One whispered, "Is it time?" The other nodded, double quotes, "Yes." That same day, a second interview surfaced. Tiffany again, but this time, no lights. No production, it's just her, in a car. A voice off camera asked, "Do you regret naming him?" She smiled. "I didn't name him," she said. "He named himself, a long time ago. I'm just reminding y'all." And somewhere in Atlanta, behind the thickest doors of a media empire, a voice said, "She knows what she's doing." And for the first time in a decade, that voice sounded afraid. Within hours, the silence collapsed. News anchors danced around the words, allegations, claims, past tension. But it wasn't the media Tiffany had set fire to, it was the myth. The myth that Tyler Perry was untouchable. And now, someone had touched the center of it calmly, publicly, without apology. Behind closed doors, publicists were begging for strategy. Do we respond? Should we deny? Do we dig up something on her? But the damage was already done. Not by accusation, by memory. Because once one person speaks, the others start remembering by the next day. 3 mid-level actresses who hadn't booked a major role since 2012 quietly reposted Tiffany's clip with no caption. A stylist who used to work for one of Perry's TV series posted a blurry photo of a non-disclosure document. No names, just one line circled in red. Ongoing silence is a condition of payment. The industry had seen these tricks before, but this time, the silence wasn't sticking. Back in Atlanta, Tyler's core team entered lockdown mode. Phones were off, meetings canceled. An internal email circulated with the subject line, "Message Containment Haddish Fallout." But it was too late. Tiffany went live on Instagram that evening. No announcement. Just her sitting on a balcony. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. "I'm not angry," she said. "I'm awake." Over 200,000 people tuned in within the first 6 minutes. "You think I'm scared?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Do you think this industry still runs on fear?" "No, baby. It runs on receipts now. And I kept mine." She held up her phone, then tapped it. A hard drive labeled 2011 The Conversation. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. "Everything I said," she whispered, "was the clean version." The screen cut out. But not before someone in the comments typed, "She's not done. And neither are we." And somewhere in a glass-walled office above Hollywood Boulevard, a nervous executive asked his assistant, "Do we know what's on that drive?" The assistant shook her head. "No, sir. But I think we're about to find out." The next morning, the headlines weren't gentle anymore. Tiffany Haddish drops bombshell names, not needed. Tyler Perry's silence is getting loud. The 2011 drive. What's she holding? News desks scrambled to get ahead of a story no one had clearance for. Journalists who had once begged for Tyler Perry. Exclusives were now texting producers with a new pitch. Can we run the timeline? Can we verify anything from 2011? But there was no timeline, not yet, because Tiffany hadn't uploaded anything. She didn't need to. She'd done something smarter. She made the threat of truth louder than truth itself. And now, everyone with a connection to her former castmates, agents, assistants, hairstylists, background extras were sitting in their kitchens wondering, did she still have the receipts from back then? Most of them knew the answer. Yes. Across the country in New York, a podcast host who once interviewed her posted that 2011 meeting. "I was outside the room." He didn't say what he heard. He didn't have to. In Atlanta, the tension reached Tyler's legal team. They met behind mirrored glass, watching a projection of the clip from Tiffany's Instagram Live. One of the lawyers asked, "Does she have documentation?" Another responded, "If she does, we need to know the format. Paper, digital, audio." Someone else said, "Does it matter? She's credible." That's the threat. Back on Tiffany's feed, a new post appeared. Not a video, just a photo of the hard drive. Plugged in. The caption, "I remember what you said when you thought no one was listening. just a clock in the background. 10:53 p.m. Within minutes, a hashtag trended anyway. The drive speaks and in. A downtown LA office, a mid-tier PR assistant dropped her coffee as she scrolled. Read it and saw the leaked contents of a file labeled. It wasn't verified. It wasn't sourced, but it was real enough. Because one of the lines read, "Make her sign it. She won't. We find someone who will." The assistant asked her boss, "Do we deny this?" The boss just stared at the screen. "No, we shut up and pray it's not the original." But deep inside her apartment, Tiffany Haddish sat alone. Watching the storm she had waited 12 years to unleash, and whispered, "Your turn to explain." The next file dropped at 11:47 p.m. No warning, no caption. It's just a Google Drive link. Posted to an anonymous Medium article titled, "When Silence is the Currency, Memory Becomes a Weapon." It wasn't edited, it wasn't dramatized, it wasn't even clean. But it was him. Tyler Perry's voice, calm, measured, unmistakable. "I don't care what she says publicly. She's under contract now. We own the rollout. Her press stops when I say it does." Got it? Click. That was it. 30-3 seconds. But it was enough. Reddit exploded. Twitter froze. Instagram stories turned black with white text. She had the tape. Within the hour, a dozen former collaborators began scrubbing their timelines. A publicist deleted 5 tweets praising Perry's last film. A mid-tier actor locked her account. A screenwriter reposted Tiffany's image with the caption, "We weren't crazy. We were cornered." The machine tried to respond. An unnamed source close to Perry leaked a denial to a friendly tabloid. He's shocked by the clip. The context is missing. This is a smear campaign. But the context wasn't missing. The world had already heard what it needed by dawn. Hashtag The Drive Speaks had been used for 0.2 million times. And Tiffany. She didn't post again. She didn't need to, because now the fear had reversed direction. A new generation of actresses started speaking. One said, "He told me I was replaceable." Another said, "He called me difficult after I said no." One simply wrote, "I stayed quiet because I watched what happened to Tiffany." Now they weren't quiet. Now there was a file, a voice, a crack in the myth, and in a hotel suite above, a darkened Atlanta skyline, a man who had been celebrated, protected, and platformed for over 2 decades sat staring at a muted television. The Chiron read, "Haddish unleashes the drive, Hollywood scrambles to react." Behind him, a lawyer stood frozen. "She's not bluffing," he said. Tyler didn't speak, because when you've built a legacy on control, there's no script for what happens when someone plays back the moment you lost it. The inboxes filled. Before sunrise, not from trolls. Not from fans, from people, writers, extras, interns. A woman who used to answer phones on Tyler's second floor. A man who managed prop inventory on a project that never aired. A costume designer who hadn't worked since 2014. All of them said, some version of the same thing. "I saw it too. Still have the email. He made me sign one too." Tiffany didn't respond. She didn't post again. No follow-up. No thread. No sit down on a talk show. She let the voice file breathe, and the silence that followed wasn't fear anymore. It was recognition. The story hit CNN by 10 a.m., but they were behind. The blogs had already broken down the entire file. AI had cleaned. The audio traced its frequency and matched it to previous interviews. There was no doubt it was him. And now, the same reporters who once called him Hollywood's safest success were rewriting his legacy in real time. Silence as strategy, the Tyler Perry file. Tiffany was right. The Empire had a contract. Meanwhile, a quiet phone call happened inside one of the major streaming platforms. An executive, do we keep his catalog up? Legal for now, but flag everything. Back in her apartment, Tiffany finally powered off her phone. She didn't need to watch the fallout. She'd already lived it once, in silence. In back corners of studios where scripts were rewritten and names were erased. Now she had given the Silence a voice, and the voice had spread. A former co-star of Perry's texted her that afternoon. Just 2 words, thank you. Another added, you cracked it open. The biggest shock wasn't that people believed her. It was that no one denied it. Not him, not his circle, not the machine. Because for the first time in 12 years, they couldn't. And somewhere in a private office lined with awards and polished wood paneling, a hand hovered over a phone. The name on the screen, Tiffany Haddish. The call was never made. Because what could he say to a woman who finally played? The only card they never thought she'd keep? It's the truth. The room he sat in was quiet. Too quiet for someone whose brand had always thrived on noise. Interviews, applause, opening night fanfare. All of it carefully engineered, perfectly timed. For years, Tyler Perry had owned the sound of momentum. Now all he heard was the click of headlines. Refreshing. His PR team was frozen. The assistants hollow-eyed. A manager paced the corner of the room whispering into a phone that wasn't answering anymore. Nobody wanted to be first to say it out loud. This wasn't going away. The machine had worked before. They'd buried worse stories with more paper, more names. But this wasn't a scandal, it was a release. And the thing about truth is, once it's out, it doesn't need marketing. It spreads on its own. Across the country, an email leaked. Internal, from a casting office. Subject line. Pause all submissions for TP projects pending directive. Someone screenshotted it. Posted it, captioned it. The empire is glitching. Tiffany, meanwhile, was nowhere on camera. Not hiding, resting, she'd said what needed to be said, dropped the voice, unlocked the memory, handed the mic to everyone who'd been waiting to speak without shaking, at a small club in Oakland. A young comic walked on stage for an open mic and said, I'm not scared of working again. Tiffany wasn't, and look what she just did. Room roared. On a podcast later that night, a veteran actress choked up. I thought I'd have to carry that story to my grave, but she carried it first. And in New Orleans, Terrence Howard quietly liked a post that read, the truth doesn't need to trend. It just needs a witness. Tyler watched it all unfold in silence. A producer suggested a counter-interview. Get ahead of it. Say your piece. He didn't answer, because he knew there was no piece to say. He'd spoken in 2011. They just hadn't heard it until now, and somewhere. In a data center that had processed hundreds of NDAs, a hard drive finished uploading one final file. It would surface in the morning, and when it did, it would confirm what Tiffany never needed to shout. She wasn't alone. By the next morning, the file was everywhere. A dry title, like a production log or an archived meeting note. But inside it were words that rattled the bones of the entire industry. No gossip, no salacious detail, just lines. Just power, written plainly. We'll offer them 3 options. Exposure, endorsement, or exclusion. Those who play along will work. Those who don't will be replaced. Tiffany's funny, smart, but not controllable. She doesn't need to be destroyed, just isolated. The document wasn't signed. But the format matched others. A production meeting recap, dated late 2011. The project wasn't named, but the roles listed were traceable. Fans figured it out in less than an hour. And just like that, the lie died. The lie that her career slowed down because she was difficult. The lie that she just hadn't been a good fit. The lie that Tyler Perry only uplifted. Never silenced. Tiffany didn't comment. She posted a story one line over a black screen. They documented everything. I just remembered it. In Hollywood, chaos disguised itself in quiet emergency meetings. Agents called each other with lowered voices. Studios called lawyers. Networks began reviewing their long-standing development deals with Perry's companies. Inside one boardroom, an executive looked up from the printed transcript. She was right. He said that the rest of the table didn't respond. There was nothing left to debate. By sundown, journalists were calling it the Haddish line. The moment of silence, so long it felt sacred, finally shattered. And no one could pick up the pieces. Actors once too scared to tweet about their truth were now quoting her. Writers were demanding clauses protecting against retaliation. Comedians were dedicating sets to her courage. Tiffany Haddish had become something no one predicted. Not a victim, not a rebel, not even a hero. She had become undeniable. And Tyler. He remained silent. But silence was no longer protection. It was proof. The empire didn't collapse in fire or scandal. It unraveled with a voice from 2011. A memory that refused to stay buried. And a woman who waited 12 years to speak 5 seconds of truth and never had to raise her voice to do it. The damage wasn't explosive. It was surgical. The kind that doesn't burn buildings, it opens doors that were welded shut. And leaves them swinging by midweek. Something strange began to happen. People inside the machine stopped defending him. Quietly. Strategically. The social media managers didn't post birthday wishes. The networks pulled promo graphics. One host canceled a legacy retrospective taping with no explanation. No one called him a monster. They didn't have to. He became something worse. Untouchable in a way that meant no one dared touch his name anymore, not even to defend it. And Tiffany. She didn't escalate. She did what no one expected. She lived, she walked red carpets, sat in front rows, accepted offers, read scripts. She didn't talk about him because now she didn't have to. The world was doing that part for her. At an awards show, a reporter asked, "Do you think the conversation's over?" Tiffany smiled. "No, baby. The conversation just started without permission." That line was clipped 1,000 times, turned into soundtracks, pinned in comments, printed on t-shirts, but she didn't sell it. Because it wasn't murk. It was memory. One night backstage at a comedy club. A young performer stopped her. "I just want to say," she whispered, "you made it possible for us to not laugh at the wrong people anymore." Tiffany looked her in the eye and said, "Then don't waste the mic." Across the country, in rooms filled with men in suits and scripts, there was confusion. Not about guilt, about control. The old playbook, bury, ignore, spin, wasn't working. The noise wouldn't die down because the people making the noise weren't interested in headlines. They were remembering. And when memory becomes louder than marketing, there's nothing left to hide behind. Not contracts, not fame, not legacy, just silence. And this time, it didn't belong to Tiffany anymore. Weeks passed. The machine slowed but didn't stop. It never stops. But it had changed. Casting directors began to whisper new rules. The old names didn't carry the same heat. Producers who once dropped Tiffany's name from shortlists were now adding it back without needing her permission. She didn't chase vindication. She let the story settle. Not because it was over, but because she no longer needed to prove it happened. She'd already survived it, and the silence that followed wasn't a retreat. It was a shift in gravity. People started asking new questions in old rooms. Who else was told to be quiet? What did we all ignore? Who's next to speak? A younger actress, barely 23, landed her first lead role. At the contract signing, she asked her rep, "What happens if I say no?" The rep hesitated, then replied, "Nothing, not anymore." That wasn't just her doing. It was the echo of Tiffany's refusal. Rolling across studios like thunder from a storm no one saw coming until it hit at an industry dinner. Someone asked her, half joking, she ever thought about naming more names? She just raised a glass and said, "That's not my job. I broke the dam. The flood ain't mine to manage." She smiled after that. A real one. The kind that comes after the weight is finally off your chest and back where it belongs, on the people who put it there. In Atlanta. He stayed silent. His phone still buzzed. Scripts arrived. Calls from loyalists, offers to clear the air. But each one landed flat, unanswered. He'd built an empire on keeping the lights on. Now, no one believed the power wasn't flickering. The awards stayed on his shelf. The money stayed in his accounts, but something had been taken from him. Not by force, by memory. And in this business, there is no comeback when people stop forgetting.